Well, we've all seen the Hollywood blockbusters about the end of the world and how death and destruction can be achieved by the touch of a button. But in Countdown to Zero, the storyline isn't fiction. Lucy Walker's latest tale tells the history of the real atomic bomb from its origins to the present day.
We estimate that there are about 23,000 nuclear weapons in the world.
What impact then a movie like this and the summit that's happening the rest of the week can do to bring about international disarmament?
The movie is about raising awareness so that the public can help to put pressure on world leaders of the kind that will bring them round the table. In fact, since the Global Zero movement started, about 300 leaders are signed up, which includes the President of the United States and the President of Russia and the Secretary General of the United Nations. So we're making progress in terms of support. What we need is more progress in terms of concrete steps, and the goal of the movie is to encourage, and the summit that's taking place this week is to talk about how practically we can move forward on those steps.
And genuinely, do you ever see a world in your lifetime or in mine when there will be no nuclear weapons again?
Well, I made a speech about this in Washington a year or so ago, and I said then that I didn't think we would get there in my lifetime, but we could get a long way towards it. I've begun to wonder if I was too pessimistic. What I'm quite sure of is that we need to get going on that road.
And a movie like this, again, you said, helps raise awareness. Who do we need to make aware of this issue? Because who else needs to know about it, and what can it actually achieve?
We need to make the public aware of it, so the public can take their part in putting pressure on the decision makers of the world to move. There is some resistance, of course there is, in some quarters, and we need that kind of public pressure that will help decision makers to overcome that resistance.
And you, as a politician here in the UK, have you had any influence, or do you think you can make any inroads into changing or influencing the government here?
Well, in this country, it has ceased to be a matter of party political dispute, I'm happy to say, and the present government is continuing with the policies that my government pursued. That is a wholly good thing, and it's a big change from a few years ago.
Various groups have been focused on acquiring weapons of mass destruction, in particular nuclear weapons.
All the black market seizures that I'm aware of were caught by luck.
At a Russian naval base in the early 1990s, potatoes were guarded better.
Why you think it's important that this film is told now, in this current climate?
Because I think the world is more dangerous than ever, unfortunately. It really is a question of when, not if. When the Cold War ended, everyone just sort of went, oh, well, that's done now. We don't need to worry about that issue anymore, when in fact it has become even more profoundly dangerous. The proliferation of weapons, if you have perpetual possession, you're going to have perpetual proliferation. This film was put together by some of the same producers who did An Inconvenient Truth, and that made people really sit up and take notice of the whole threat of global warming. We're hopeful that Countdown to Zero has the same sort of effect of people paying attention, and if I could ask your viewers to go to cutnukes.org for more information on Global Zero. I'm in London for the Global Zero Summit, and I am very grateful that I get to continue the work I did with the CIA, but in a more overt capacity.
I was going to ask you about that. You worked heavily with the CIA. What do you think, or how do you think your new profile will help in this whole argument?
Well, I have obviously a public voice that I did not have before, and I didn't want, but that wasn't my choice. I care about this passionately. When my career in the CIA focused on counterproliferation efforts, making sure the bad guys don't get nukes, and this is a way of continuing that work and in a very public fashion. So, and I can speak with some experience on some of those issues of terrorism and nuclear threat. So.
And what do you hope that the movie then will achieve in itself, and the global summit that's happening the rest of this week?
It begins to energize and motivate the political will to move toward this. We've signed the New START Treaty in the United States, between the United States and Russia, and we're continuing. I think we have a window of opportunity right now, and this movie, I hope, will advance that goal further. It's not going to be next week or next month, but you have to start somewhere.
Iran, North Korea, they are prepared to start trading nuclear weapons technology.
The objective of Al-Qaeda is to, quote, kill 4 million Americans. You're not going to get to kill 4 million people by hijacking airplanes and crashing them into buildings.
I'm just wondering whether you could give me a sense of how important you think this issue is to you.
Well, it's very important to me. I've lived in a conflict region for almost 40 years. So just from the standpoint of observing the proliferation of weapons of all sorts, and especially the proliferation of nuclear weapons and nuclear programs in the Middle East, let alone elsewhere in the world, it is a source of deep concern. The Countdown to Zero helps make it clear to the public through the words of the experts in the field, through the words of those who are responsible for developing nuclear programs in the beginning, that this threat is now far greater. It's a far greater immediate threat than any other threat on Earth. This is a threat to each and every one of us as long as any country has a nuclear arsenal.
And so why is it then that we're in such a volatile situation at the moment, and it's such a big threat now, like never before since the Cold War? You know,
since the Cold War, the number of nuclear states has increased by 50% of what it was prior to the Cold War. And those states lie, a number of them, in very unstable regions. Their programs, the materials in their programs are not well guarded, are not well secured. And we, therefore, are facing almost more than any state-to-state confrontation, which in and of itself would be catastrophic. We're facing an increasing threat of nuclear terrorism, that nuclear materials, as they proliferate, become more and more likely to be able to be acquired or stolen by terrorists. And that is a threat that faces cities like London, New York, major cities in other regions of the world. Anywhere that a terrorist might decide he can make his name by setting off a nuclear bomb.
And what can Global Zero and Countdown to Zero do to try and help?
We can educate the world. We can educate the audiences that see this film. And Global Zero, through a network of former heads of state, of military experts, of ministers, or former ministers, and current and former heads of state, as well as a growing grassroots network, is hoping to mobilize public opinion around the world to support those leaders who understand the importance of eliminating nuclear weapons, and to help change the minds of those who are on the fence, and help increase the pressure on those who haven't yet come to the table, so to speak. We believe that multilateral negotiations among all the nuclear states are the next key step, and the United States and Russia must leave. They had the greatest number of weapons, and we believe this is possible right now as more and more people do come to understand the real threat that's out there. This is not this is a real and immediate, a real and present danger, clear and present danger, as the movie went. This film, I think, is already playing a very, very valuable role in that. And Global Zero is using it and also trying to expand our impact. We've developed policy, clear, realistic policies to show how Global Zero could be reached by 2030, but we're also working among the grassroots, policymakers, and within the NGO communities who are coming on board in great numbers.
It takes everyone, doesn't it?
It takes everyone. It takes a village. And this is, when you look at the issue of nuclear weapons, we are all living in one very vulnerable village.
The United States launched a rocket from Norway to study the Northern Lights. We told the Russians that we were going to launch that rocket, but somebody in Moscow forgot to pass word on it.
The Russians actually opened up the command and control launch codes, the button, put it on the desk, and said, "We're under attack." Fortunately, Yeltsin wasn't drunk, and he didn't believe what the military was telling him.
Congratulations on the movie.
I appreciate it very much, thank you.
A lot of work presumably went into it. What gave you the inspiration? Where did it all come from?
Having made An Inconvenient Truth, I got to see firsthand how a movie can educate and inspire an audience to join a movement. And this issue, the nuclear crisis, is the other sort of umbrella issue I feel that can change life on a planetary basis. So whether it's with use of from conflict, or whether it's launched by accident, or whether it's acquired by a terrorist. So it's I know it's a movie. I had these guys in my office for 3 years. We're editing away. It's a long process. I'm really happy to be here.
And not just a movie, it's a documentary as well. I mean, why did you choose that medium to tell the story?
Well, I feel like documentary, you know, I'm an activist, right? I mean, I'm a filmmaker and I'm an activist, and I feel like a documentary gives us a platform to elaborate on it. You know, it brings people into the cinema in a way that you normally wouldn't do that. And we have some people to lure people in. We have former presidents, Jimmy Carter, Gorbachev, de Klerk, Musharraf, Tony Blair. We have ex-CIA operative Valerie Plame Wilson. We have a smuggler, a nuclear smuggler in Georgia who's luckily in jail. So you have a lot of really interesting people in the movie too.
And how important is it to have them involved in the movie? I mean, could you not tell the story without them, do you think?
Without these former heads of states? Sure, but honestly, I just want to make sure that it's a dense subject. I want people's faces that people know and see, and there's a lot of very interesting people in the movie. We did over 100 interviews for this movie. Obviously not all that are in it.
And I'm just wondering whether you have the same concern about the nuclear threat that there is today in the world as Margaret, Beckett and Her Majesty Noor that they have told me about. I mean, do you think that the threat is now more than it has been since the Cold War or not?
I think most people feel like the threat today, the nuclear threat, is worse than during the Cold War. During the Cold War, as bad as that was, we had this thing, mutually assured destruction. If we launched missiles at Russia, or Russia launched missiles at the United States, the other one would launch and we'd all be destroyed and dead. And somehow that prevailed, luckily. Today, it's a very different situation. Today, we still have the possibility of accidental launch and conflict, but the big issue obviously is terrorism. They could buy, steal, or make a bomb. And that's a terrifying situation because obviously terrorists by nature don't care about retrieval, and that's of great concern to most people.
Highly enriched uranium is now within the grasp of any country.
It doesn't take a Manhattan Project to make a bomb.
We've got to ensure that never once do terrorists succeed in detonating a nuclear weapon.
Do you think that your next movie will be something similar with a political or an activist kind of issue, or do you think you'll go back to making fiction?
Oh, well, my next movie coming out is a movie with Jason Statham.
Oh, wow.
It's called
Tell
Safe.
me about that.
It's called Safe, and it's Jason and a 12-year-old Chinese girl, and it's great. It's great.
And what do you get more pleasure from?
Oh, I get pleasure out of doing both. I love making movies for just entertainment, and I have a real passion for making movies that somehow could make a difference in the world. One other thing that's really should be noted is that we globally, the 9 countries that have nuclear weapons, will spend $1 trillion over the next 10 years, $100 billion per year over the next 10 years on nuclear weapons. Just think about what we could be doing with that money if we weren't spending on nuclear weapons.
All of the forces on launch ready alert could kill over 100 million Russians and Americans within 30 minutes.
I state with conviction America's commitment to seek a world without nuclear weapons.
And tonight's premiere was shown simultaneously across 80 other cinemas across the country and will go on general release this Friday. Thomas Magill for Premiere Scene.
Would it not be better to do away with them entirely?
The optimum number is none.
None. We'd be better off without them. I say 0.
No nuclear weapons.
0.
0.
0 nuclear weapons.
None. None.
The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us.